So it would be something to this nature. I could be wrong, but insert suggestion or insight or interpretation of what the client was talking about as far as their life story. So we have the assessment. Well, obviously, the very first thing that you would do in a therapeutic situation would be to establish a therapeutic relationship with the client. I believe that that should be in every theory, that you establish a good relationship, a good rapport with the client. But again, so then we'll move on to the encouragement phase, encouraging the client to take control of their life, to look at the resources they have available to them, to look at their support system and who is there with them so they know for a fact that they're not alone in their life and in their problems. And then finally, you will move on to the actual process of change, which would be helping the client to make the better decisions in their life by giving them different types of suggestions, things that they can follow through, even if it's things that they can do on a daily basis to kind of help give them that momentum to, establish the groundwork for better and more permanent change. So, although this theory is the start of individual psychology and does work wonders as it does for individuals who need this type of therapy, Adler's theory is also very well suited for family counseling. And I say that because in the family counseling setting, each person goes and they get the full treatment, the full benefit of these goal-oriented sessions with their therapist. So in the family, let's say you have a family of 3, a mother, father, and a son, each person gets a chance to go. They get a chance to tell their life story and share with the group how they perceive the world. And the group is challenged to view that person's story subjectively and kind of gain their family member's perspective, which is something a lot of families don't have. So by gaining the perspective that you have of your family member, you can better understand why they do the things they do, why they act the way they act, how they perceive and see the world, and that helps as a better understanding, open up more grounds for communication. So now we have, and let's say in a family setting, established therapeutic relationship. We are now assessing, so each person is now telling their life story, and we're all looking and viewing at their story subjectively and trying to gain a further perspective. When I move on to insight, the therapist gives his insight. Therapist may or may not allow other family members to give their insight or interpretation of another family member's story. And then we'll move on to encouragement. Everybody is involved in the encouragement process as far as letting each other know, hey, you got me. You're not alone. We have different resources, my resources or your resources, things of that nature. And then we all move together for the process of change, which is helping each other make better choices to help them figure out whatever problem it is that ails them, So I also believe this theory will work well with depression clients, as it involves taking a look at your life and seeing what you do have instead of seeing what you don't. So again, you'll be looking at your support system, looking at your assets, looking at your resources that you have around you, and knowing that you yourself can make the change that you are looking for. This theory in general is very general. So when it comes to cultural practices or cultural things, this theory was designed to work with all different ages, genders, races, because the things that they ask, the 3 life tasks, again, are very general and it can apply to every person on the planet and not just a specific population of people on the planet, which is why this theory is so widely used in a lot of different settings, because you can really mold this theory to whatever cultural setting it needs to be in, or that is being used in. So that is very open-ended question, which allow the client to give their own answer. For the most part, something from their heart that really pertains to them as a person and shares their uniqueness. The only ethical issues I can see would be some of those of countertransference. So maybe you have a therapist who's not quite ready to accept and understand people from different cultures, backgrounds, and perspectives or beliefs, and that could lead them to countertransference, like I said, or just to not accept them at all and not establishing that therapeutic rapport with the client that they need to in order to even begin assessments, or remaining objective in their sessions while listening to the client's story. So now, if I was to give an example of how I see the theory being used, I would say, let's say the problem is, a lack of positive male role models in young boys' lives. Or you can just say a missing father in the family setting, right? Approach with this would be family counseling through Adlerian approach. So you bring in the mother and the child. Let's say the child is in a single parent home, the mother's the only one around. You bring in that mother and that child, you sit them down, and then you begin to establish a therapeutic rapport. So what Adler says is that you shouldn't start at all with the problem. When dealing with clients, you should not start with the problem. You should start with the person as individuals, who they are, how they are, what they've been up to, and really generate that feeling of compassion towards this person. Like, I truly care about you, and that's what it should be like. That's how you establish that therapist support. So then you would assess the child in front of the mother by allowing the child to tell their life story up until where they are now, how they feel, and kind of get in the mindset of that child. Children are children, and their problems should be treated as such. That being said, look at their problems as a child will look at that problem to better understand the perspective of that child, because at the end of the day, they're still a child. The mother will do the same thing, trying their hardest to remain objective and listen and put themselves in their child's shoes as objectively as they possibly can. Next, it would be to provide enlightenment or interpretation of the child's story, again with those open-ended suggestions. The mother may ask to be a part of this, may not, may simply be in the spectator role, which is all right. So again, with the problem of this child's father not being in his life, we'll say we would make the assessment that this child is lacking the intimacy life task. Is looking for intimacy of the father in other places, which is now inspiring delinquent behavior, causing them to end up here in front of you in family therapy, right? So from there, you assess the problem, you get the insight. Now we're looking for the process of change. So that would be suggesting to the child that you should look to the men that you do have in your life that you consider to be positive, or that you and your mother can both consider to be positive, and then you spend more time with them and even let them know that you're looking for what you're looking for. So you're looking for the intimacy of guidance from another male, someone who can closely relate to you more so than your mother can by being that male person, someone who cares about you as a person and as a child, genuinely wants to see you do better and moving towards the future. So that is my role-playing device for Adlerian Theory. And this is my presentation on Adler's Theory. So hope you enjoyed it. See you later.